So this is a short video on postmodernism and crime. Postmodernism, I think, is one of the tricky topics in crime that people don't tend to like very much. But actually, when you consider it, it's quite straightforward. Now, when we look at the postmodern perspective on crime and deviance, we know that it's going to say something very, very different from the other social theories. There is not as much to discuss relating to the cause of crime as you see in the other theories. You know, if you're from a Marxist perspective, then crime is caused by the economic system of capitalism. If you're doing it from an interactionist perspective, it's relation to labelling. So for the majority of the social theories, they're looking at giving a very set, defined explanation for why crime occurs, whereas for our postmodernists, it's a little bit different. And essentially what we are going to say is crime is an individual and an emotional response to a feeling that you have. In such, it's not a scientific thing that you can measure or that you can say, well, this is when that's going to happen, this is when that's going to happen. It is an emotional response. And we see these ideas in the work of Lynn Katz, Levin and McDevitt, who would all look at these kind of or have these concepts for emotional reactions that cause crime. So Ling's idea of edge work, that notion that it's fun to put things on the line, right? When you go on a roller coaster, you're putting your kind of your life on the line. When you're committing a robbery, you might be putting your life on the line as well, but you're also putting your social life on the line. You're also putting your freedom on the line. So in that sense, it's riskier than a roller coaster, and lots of us like roller coasters, so crime might be the same thing. Obviously for Katz, this idea that it's seductive, you know, that the idea when you tell a kid don't push that red button, well, the next thing they want to do is push that red button. When it's something that you don't want to, that you shouldn't do, you go and you do it. You're seduced into doing it, and it's because it's thrilling. It's a thrill-seeking experience to perhaps make somebody feel bad, as Levin and McDevitt say. To hurt somebody, to make somebody feel low, to take something from somebody. So these are emotional kind of reasons for criminality. And as such, you can't see them embedded within structural explanations, which is why postmodernism is so different, which is why it works well as a conclusion for lots of questions on different theories, because they're going to say something entirely different. However, within the postmodern view, there are a couple of other ideas that we need to get our head around if you've got a question which just focuses on postmodernism. And the first one of those is the definition of crime. Okay, Henry and Milovanovich would say that from a postmodern perspective, we want to change what crime even means. We want to give it a more broad definition. And that definition would include that crime is something that is harmful. Now, we know traditionally that there are harms of, they would say, which are harms of reduction, which is like theft or violence. So a harm of reduction would be something where you take something from somebody, or when you harm somebody in a physical sense. So, you know, robbery, assault, those kind of things would be harms of reduction. But for a postmodern perspective, they would also want to include harms of repression. And these would be harms that are committed by people who are powerful, people who are in charge of the system, against more marginalised groups. So they're marginalising factors that we may not see currently as crimes. And the reason that, of course, our postmodernists would say that we currently don't see them as crimes is because powerful people who are in charge haven't said that this is what is criminal. So you think about harms of repression, there might be sexual harassment, there might be even the way that something makes you feel. A video that you watch could make you feel bad, and if you're part of a group that may be more marginalised, then maybe that would seek to be a harm of repression. We looked at the case, I believe, of Count Dankula, who made his dog do a Nazi salute, and in Scotland the laws are different from in England, so he was charged with a hate crime for that. Whether you agree or not with him being charged with a hate crime, essentially what he was doing was having a joke and using his words. What the postmodernists would say is that was quite a good thing. That's an example of a harm of repression, because his words could have had a big impact on people who might have been Jewish watching it, or anybody from any marginalised background. So they want a much wider definition of that. Obviously, the problem is with this idea of harm of repression is how many people do you need to offend before it becomes a harm of repression. It's a very, very tricky thing to do, but a redefinition of crime is something that they would be interested in. They would also want a change in the way that we deal with the criminal justice system. Redistributive justice, sometimes called restorative justice, which Dehan is very pro-using instead of just the system that we have at the minute, which locks up prisoners. This restorative, redistributive justice attempts to bridge the gap and bridge the harm, again, that has befallen the victim of crime, so that they're allowed to go meet with the person who's committed the crime against them in a controlled environment where both the perpetrator and the victim have agreed, and talk out their the situation there. Now, I think 86% of the time people were very, very pleased with that interaction. So restorative justice is certainly a good way of changing the way that we deal with the punishment in this criminal justice system, and potentially kind of restoring the harm that's been caused, rather than just you simply are a victim of crime, you see the person who's perpetrated it against you in court, and you hear that they've been sent down for a year, and then that's it, you're very removed from that. They want harm repaired. And the last thing, which is possibly the trickiest thing sometimes to get our head around, is Foucault's idea of the fact that you practice self-surveillance. This is a way of controlling crime, and Foucault would say that we are in a current world where crime is kind of stopped by your own thought process. We are kind of in a situation where we are practicing self-surveillance all the time, with the amount of CCTV, with the amount of security checks, with the amount of badges and things that you have to have nowadays to get into buildings, means that you are in a state of watching yourself. And this is a lot like the panopticon, if you remember Jeremy Bentham's kind of circular prison, or with a central tower, where it requires one guard to look out of a window and can look into every cell, and eventually you don't need the guard. If you've got one-way glass, the prisoners will look and watch themselves. And it's, it's potentially quite a negative thing mentally, to be in a situation where you are practicing self-surveillance all the time, where you're worried and you're inducing fear in a population, so much so that they are watching themselves. And that's what Foucault would say that we currently live in, this kind of police maybe state where you are constantly being watched by cameras and constantly monitored. Now, that is the postmodern perspective. As he said, it's going to say something very, very different from all the other social theories. And remember, postmodernism is just an idea, so it's not very easy to test some of these ideas out, and they've got a lot of problems within them, okay, such as broadening the definition of crime to mean harm is very, very broad, and then perhaps anybody saying anything, we may be restricting freedom of speech by the postmodern definition. But those are the ideas broadly. My focus would be, when you compare postmodernism to another theory, is you focus on just, rather than them saying it's capitalism, it's emotions, and then you've got a very simple but still effective comparison there. But if your question is on postmodernism itself, then you've got those extra little bits that you would write about, which would cover their perspective on crime and deviance.